Okay, this is Block 8, Pax Americana, Section 4, We Like Ike. The section beginning the election of 1952. With the Korean War dragging down his popularity and the fact that he already served 7 years, Truman decided against running in 1952. And the Democrats nominated the governor of Illinois, a man by the name of Adlai Stevenson. And Adlai Stevenson became the standard bearer for the Democratic Party. He was a bookish intellectual, found a little bit of a cold fish, found it difficult to connect with ordinary voters, in contrast to the success that Roosevelt and Truman had had in connecting with ordinary Americans. The Republicans won that year in 1952, the Great Sweepstakes, when General Eisenhower announced that he indeed was a Republican. No one really knew what he was beforehand. And that he would accept being drafted to run. He would not go out there and say, I want to be nominated, but if the Republican Party wanted him, then he would not say no. Eisenhower was by far the most popular American, not only in the country, but in the entire world. And he had no problem winning the election, really. He pretty much didn't even bother campaigning. And as you can tell by the map, the electoral vote was simple, 442 electoral votes to 89. Eisenhower made his success by appearing as a very nonpartisan Republican. He was a Republican, but he was certainly no, extreme either isolationist, an extreme anti-communist, an extreme laissez-faire Republican. He was kind of a middle-of-the-road, grandfatherly type. Trust me to take care of the complicated issues, Eisenhower said. Why? Because he had been taking care of complicated issues for a very, very long time. As his running mate, he chose the anti-communist, more politically active Richard Nixon. And Eisenhower picked Nixon for a couple reasons. It shored up the anti-communist section of the Republican Party, and Nixon kind of enjoyed the down-in-the-trenches, mudslinging, punch-pulling, frick-a-frack of politics, of everyday politics. So Eisenhower could kind of sit back and look like the grandfatherly type above the political fray, while Nixon kind of pulled the punches, and Nixon was very hard-hitting. And it was Nixon out on the campaign trail who accused Democrats, and I like this, of cultivating corruption, caving on Korea, and coddling communists. Basically, the Republican Party in 1952 won for two separate reasons. One, and most importantly, was just the awesome popularity of Eisenhower. People are not going to be voting against the architect of the World War II victory. And second of all, Democrats had now controlled the White House for 5 consecutive terms. And that was, in many Americans' opinion, long enough that corruption had set in amongst people who had kind of been sitting in government jobs for a long time, and the American people were ready for a change. Nixon ran into some difficulties during the campaign, and late in the campaign, the Democrats kind of tried to use this to their advantage. They accused Nixon of accepting illegal gifts from supporters, that presidents or people on the campaign trail are not supposed to be accepting presents from supporters. It just, it can look like bribery. Nixon wanted to fight back, as was his nature. And he thought that he could do so by appearing on a new medium, the medium of television. And Nixon in 1952, television is just starting to become popular in many American households. Nixon goes on television and gives this really kind of pathos-laden speech, in which he used emotions to kind of carry an argument. And it became known as the Checkers speech. He directly addressed the American people and said the only gift that he had ever received was a little Cocker Spaniel dog. And he said, and Tricia, our 6-year-old, named it Checkers. And here is Nixon, the father, saying that, yeah, we got a present. It was a dog. It was for my daughter. She named it Checkers. Who's going to make a campaign issue out of Checkers the dog? Nixon kind of implies. And, being on television and connecting directly with the American people, the tactic of making Nixon and Eisenhower look bad failed. And what it does is it shows the potential power of this new medium of television that allows candidates to make direct emotional connections with voters. Even Eisenhower began appearing on political advertisements, not saying much, just saying, vote for Eisenhower, we love America. Critics started saying, as critics are wont to do, the critics are saying that, television is taking the complex issues of the day and reducing them to 30-second sound bites. And God, imagine if we heard presidents on the news today for 30 seconds. The average sound bite now is about 5 seconds. But critics back then were saying that these complex issues between Eisenhower and Stevenson, television was reducing them to sound bites that really meant nothing, and that the candidate who played on the emotions of the people best won. And they said that television would damage American politics forever. That television was designed for show business and entertainment. And if television was designed for show business and entertainment, very soon American politics would be all about show business and entertainment as well. That being said, Nixon and Eisenhower carried the day easily, and Eisenhower was inaugurated as president in January of 1953. His 8 years in office would come to define the 1950s as Eisenhower's America, and lots of different things that went into that cultural, that milieu, that idea, that Eisenhower's America calls up a very definite and distinctive set of beliefs, emotions, thoughts, myths about the 1950s that persist very much so to this day.